Cool. We're live. Fantastic. So, first of all, welcome to SEO Career Mastery, Gabrio. I'm
Thank
Rocky.
you, guys. Happy to be here. Yeah.
Introduce Rocky.
Hello.
That's class. So, whereabouts in the world are you right now, Gabrio?
I'm at the moment in Robinho in Croatia.
Okay, beautiful, beautiful. But yeah, we were chatting about that before we came on, that it's snowing in the UK right now, which is a bit crazy. But we've got, you're in Croatia, I'm in the Caribbean, Shreya's in Cape Town in South Africa, Darius is in UK. We've got a diverse
worldwide.
International, yeah.
Well, look, on that subject, Gabriel, you've been working remote for quite a few years now. What's your kind of pros and cons with it?
Oh, it's a big topic. Let's start with some generic stuff. Well, big pros, of course, that you can work on your own time, essentially, and you can work outside if you want, right? You can be in the beach or you can work in a cafe and stuff. But maybe on the con side, that you are in charge of your time, in fact. And, it's a pro and con at the same time. And I think for some people, the lack of human touch will be really missing. So I think those are some of the, pro and con. Again, efficiency could be more efficient, when you work remotely, working on things, you'll spend less time commuting and so on. Equally, it can be abused because you're always available. There could be an expectations at times that, hey, you will answer Slack in 30 minutes, right? Everything gets done quicker, where instead it's still us, it's still people, right? Behind the scenes, we're not robots still. So sometimes things get longer. So I think for that, at times clients or even colleagues, you can manage expectations, but you need to be proactive. This is the difference. Then you need to, mention it or make people aware.
Yeah, 100%. I've been saying that for a while, that I'm a big fan of remote working. Like, I've got the whole team are remote. We're always going to be remote. But I don't think it's for everyone. I think you have to have the disciplines and the want to work remotely. So what's one tip that's like worked for you working remote? What's your one biggest tip?
I think you need to be really in charge of your planning. I think that's super important. So you need to be quite organized. I think being organized, that would be one tip for me. And so that you can take things on as they come, essentially. Yeah.
Absolutely cool. Well, look, moving on from that, Gabriel. So, like, one thing that we said in the description about you is that you're one of our successful candidates recently. We got you a big role in the US. So on the outside, looks like a big role. It was quite a big salary, big US company, all of that. But there was a few little things that you brought to my attention the other day about currency exchange and all of that. Do you want to kind of like give us a brief overview of what you meant with that?
Yeah, well, I think, again, expectation management is important. So I think for people that wanting to apply for this type of roles, I mean, know what you get into, because on the one hand, you have, exciting salary, which is great, considering even current times and, what's happened. But, there will be some expectations. I would say one thing. So US clients usually are quite demanding. And so there is an expectation of delivering. So I would say that's one thing. And the next thing, the currency. It's a good point, because depending by the situation, and again, this will be very individual on the company and what you agree with, will be currency exchange. A great point, because some companies will say, no, look, we will pay you in USD, and you kind of swallow the conversion at your end, and it's a bit take it or leave it. Some others, I imagine, might be more, open, or you might say, no, look, I want to be paid in, let's say, pounds or euro, and this is what I want. So I don't have the conversion, but they will have. So I think this is a point which should be at least be made clear, while someone is in discussion with a company. See what's possible. Do they have any flexibility? Are they open? And especially on that note, do they have any interim solutions, such as Well, little plug here, Wise or Revolut, for example, are nice companies that can facilitate this, where you will not lose a lot in FX, foreign exchange, because that can happen. So if you don't do anything, they pay you in different currency with, hey, a nice big salary, you will lose a lot in FX. And then you'll not be happy. At least that's what I'm not happy when I see those. So I try to be a little smart and optimize if possible, normally.
And what about time zones? Because obviously a US company is a lot different to the time that is in Croatia right now. What's the story there?
Yeah, that's another good point. Again, I would say something that needs to be taken into account, because this means sometimes you do late client calls, and also with your team, you don't have the sync in the same time zone, and this means even more delayed replies that in some cases plays well. When you're ahead, you're doing something, the next team member comes on and they are on early hours, so you get more done, which is great. But at other times, when you expect an answer, or if they wait something from me, this adds 1 day delay pretty much. So I think time zones is something that should be taken into consideration, because can have a big impact also on your let's say work-life balance. In fact, let's say if you have a lot of late calls, are you willing to do that, or you don't care? It's fine, I work great in the evening. Fantastic. So again, otherwise you need to manage, essentially, okay, set some time zones where you are available, or again, agree with the company. Again, my advice, discuss those things early on during the negotiation phase, see what's expected from the company. Do they have all West Coast clients? Those are really challenging for me, for instance, right now sometimes. And that means shifting my working hours some days. So I will start late one day. I will start late in the morning, which means I organize my morning differently. And then I take a call at 6 or 7. Or you can use, the resources available. If you have a colleague in America, let's try if he can be on the call. So I would say working hours, yeah, also another good topic, yeah, in fact.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's one thing. Go ahead, Darius.
Yes.
No, sorry, I was just going to ask, in terms of tax, I know I chat to a lot of candidates and they're always worried about sort of the tax from US companies. How is that sort of working with yourself then at the minute?
Yeah, well, what I decided to set up basically is a small activity for myself here in Croatia as a freelancer, which I have to say was very challenging. But let's say in the UK, this is relatively easy, and in more kind of developed countries in Western Europe is easier. So essentially, I'm set up as my own business, and basically I'm a contractor for this US company, and they pay me with a monthly invoice. So you need to be a bit organized. And again, this will have different dependencies in whichever country you are, because in some countries, and Josh knows that we've been moving around before settling here. So I've got information from different countries in Europe, because I spoke with like 5 or 7 tax guys, accountants, and things are a bit different. So for instance, some countries you cannot do one client only. So some countries, they will tell you, look for the tax authorities. And again, this is not strange things. It's just they think you have an activity. So for, being, let's say, according to the law, you should have a number of clients if you are a freelancer, because in an ideal scenario, a freelancer has multiple clients, right? Not one client the whole year and that's it. So, that's something, it's easier if you have a couple of small things than one giant one for tax reasons. And for this, I recommend anyone that is thinking to go this route. So spend some 100, 200 pounds on with a tax guy and ask this question. Is it okay if I get one client only? Because the company, let's say the US company, they will not care in a way. It's your responsibility to find out this information. And it's rightfully so, because for them, you are a contractor, even you're part of the team, everything. But on that aspect, it's on you. So, yeah.
Perfect. And so, Gabrio, obviously, you've been working remote for quite a bit. How important is the onboarding process to you? Because obviously, you're a very high-level SEO, so you're kind of, normally when you're coming into a company, you're coming up pretty high level. How important is the onboarding process to you?
Yeah, I think it's still important. Doesn't matter in a way which level you are. I mean, of course, for some, let's say, less experienced people might be different the process. Or you might hear Rocky now, but I would say still important, and especially growing companies can be tricky at times. So yeah, at the same time, some companies are different than others. Processes might be different, so you kind of have to roll with it. But in principle, is very important. Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, because that's one thing we've been saying to clients recently is like, we can go out and find you the perfect SEO. We can do the recruitment side of things, but like the onboarding process is so important. Like one thing, Darius has heard me say it a few times to clients now, that it's like the honeymoon phase. Or another metaphor I say is like, it's like your first day of school. You remember who was like nice to you. You remember those first few days. That like we need to like try and get clients just to figure it out on the first month, just to make sure you meet the team, you kind of know all the processes, and just set the standard for going on forward. But yeah,
And
and then in turn,
Josh, just sorry to interrupt. On that note, I think even more when it's all remote, right? Because we approach companies, in different ways, but especially when one is full remote and it's even difficult to meet, even for once, even more you should have a clear onboarding, everything clear or as clear as you can. And I think if there is a possibility of meeting in person even once only and then work the whole year remotely, I think that should be considered, and then again discuss with the company who's paying flights and stuff like logistics. But if it's possible, or organize something, that's also a lot of value, because my previous company, last 2 years we were working remotely, even though we had an office. So that was a bit different, the story there. So I had a different rapport with my colleagues, and it was all on the same hours. So yeah, it can be, in fact, remote on US hours or remote in EU hours, very different story, and with a pro and con again.
definitely. Well, as I mentioned, Shreya's down in Cape Town. She started with us start of February, and we've got Shreya coming over to the UK. We're throwing our own event in June. So Shreya's coming over for that, and it's actually her birthday weekend as well. So it'll be a good
Nice.
time to meet everybody face to face and exactly like build on team culture. But that's another one as well. Then so that's one thing that you hear about all the time is like, how do you keep a strong team culture on a fully remote team? Have you got any tips for that?
Yes, definitely not easy, Josh, especially when, again, you have people in different time zones and even different needs. People have families, or, I mean, again, you have other things going on. So my tip would be for, uh, either business owners or even team members, try to see if at least there are some, like you said, once a year, twice a year, some touch points possible. And then it also depends if it's important for you, because some people, are maybe more introvert. They don't necessarily want those things, and remote works great actually for those. But then, I'm a quite outgoing person, maybe you can tell. So I like that option if ever there is. So while I wouldn't trade the whole remote for the whole go back to office again, never. I would not do 5 days office anymore, really. So, but at the same time, some touch points. So if on the one hand this was highlighted during the past 2 years, that hey, remote really works, then you cannot expect to do exactly the same things that you do in a normal office scenario. And I'm not just talking about the chatter, coffee machine chat and stuff. It's just, in fact, to build a report or a strategy session, for example. There is no replacement for an in-person strategy session with whiteboards on the wall. Those type of things, in my opinion, you can do it virtually, is not the same thing.
Yeah. I don't know if you've seen recently, but Amazon, so they allowed everybody to work fully remote over the last like 2 or 3 years. And I think it was last week or the week before, they put out a thing that they want everybody back in the office, I think 3 days a week. And it was something like 30% of their employees don't live beside the office anymore. They've like moved away. So
Crazy.
they're like
I
having
didn't
an
hear that.
absolute nightmare, which is
Well,
crazy.
things change, in fact, and I was reading one other article, and they were saying that people now are more likely to have an office located further than their home, as long as they do maximum 1 or 2 days at the office. So because they're mostly based at home, then on those 2 days, okay, fine, I will do 2 hours train on that day. So that's also interesting dynamic, right? That develop, which
Absolutely. And obviously, so this is SEO Career Mastery, Gabrio, and you have been involved in the hiring for quite a few SEOs. So what's one thing that's kind of stood out for you when hiring SEOs?
Oh, that's a good one. Let me think. Well, as they say, some of our kind, let's call it that way, can fluff your CV, without necessarily having the backing in a way. Sorry, I put it not in a nice English, but I think you get what I mean, right? That
Yeah.
you
No
can pump
problem.
up the CV, but then when it comes to doing the thing, then maybe one is not so good. And I think from a hiring perspective, at times that's tricky because on the one hand, you want to do screening on the CVs because you cannot talk to everybody, right? But at the same time, you need to do some sort of screening. So having a balance there is tricky. So what I normally do, what we did in the previous company was, having some specific questions, or again, try to make the job post as specific as you can make it. And then there's the like the $1 million questions about project. Should you give a candidate a project or not? And then should it be paid for or not? So during my, quite some years of career, I had situations, I would say, for the most part, where I've done projects without being paid. And then there's been times where, I remember one company in Australia where, and I didn't get the job, but they paid for the project. And I thought that was really like ace stellar because many times these projects are not simple. So, which of course one wants to understand if you are good or not, but they do take time. And so it's a bit of an investment from you. And then, the company wants to see back. So I have experienced a couple of times paid projects, but for the most part, they're free. So I think that's also the difficult part where on the one hand, you want to understand the experience of one person. On the other hand, it's not right to assign hey, give me a full strategy for this e-commerce client, review crawl budget and find out JavaScript issues, write me a complete tech recommendation. And if it's good, you'll go to the next stage.
Yeah.
So,
Have you ever found that like a project, if you've asked somebody to do a project, have you ever found that that's deterred them from applying to the role? Have people just dropped out and refused to do a project before?
no, it didn't happen, that I have to say, but I could see the case where one might be put off. I would say some better options there would be having a questionnaire with some ABC questions, which are relatively quick to do, and then you can you have your right answers. It's like the Google Analytics test, they're online everywhere. So, but something a bit more custom that I would spend some time on and prepare it, and then you can quickly send it to the candidate. Will not take him ages to do at the same time. Like, what's the difference between 301, 302, 307, error code, some techie stuff. So I think that's a kind of nice mix there.
Well, that's something I've definitely noticed is that when we first started, a lot of our clients wanted to do tests, but they weren't paying. But that's something recently, like a lot of our clients, if it's a technical role or if it's something where they really need to see the work, they're happy to pay them on the hour for however long it took. But we had one client recently in the UK that was doing a 3-hour practical for an SEO. It was like kind of like a junior SEO manager role. And they just wanted everybody to go through it. And I was like, nobody has 3 hours during the week to do it, let alone not be paid. Like, it's a bit ridiculous. But anyway, they finally dropped that.
Because Josh, also could come across, hey, you want free work from me, and then if you don't hire me, then you can use my whatever I did for you. So,
well, Gabriel, that's the thing. It was this is one of our clients, go in and see whatever it was, right? And it was because they wanted to see like the real kind of what they could do. But again, it could be they just wanted work done. But yeah, it's pretty crazy. But yeah, so Gabriel, right, you're at the kind of top level of your SEO career, right? What advice would you give to kind of maybe an SEO with maybe 2 to 3 years experience trying to get to the top level?
Oh, good question. Well, first of all, I would say that there are, SEO is so broad these days, although there's still, the main things, if you want, like tech SEO, content SEO, backlinks in general. I know there's more, but let's group them in these three big categories. And then where would you like, to specialize? Ideally, I think one will find in his early on, or somewhere early on, what he would like to do, what he wants to do more than other things. So for a younger person, I would suggest have a feel of all the three things. Do some content if you can, apply for a content role, and then do some experience in tech. And if you have a chance also of managing people, that can come also into play, because our industry is getting very developed, and things are moving so quickly, and especially on the tech side, it's very difficult to be up to date with everything. I don't know everything. It's impossible. And I think it will be under an overstatement saying, hey, I can do everything, no problem. So everybody will be more or less specialized. And again, so the question is, do you want to be more generalist, kind of covering more or less everything, maybe one little bit, or be a very, very specialist in that area? And for instance, tech SEO roles pay quite well, in specific things, or tech architect on specific things, technical SEO strategies, those type of roles. And I like tech stuff myself, so those are things that I personally like. So my advice would be, if you can, do a broader experience early on in your career, but then later on it's good to be a bit more focused on one thing, because then if you are a hiring manager and you say, okay, what is this guy doing? Is this doing tech? Is the content? Is doing everything? So I think if you see my CV, for example, is more geared around tech plus management as a broader categories. And yeah, I hope that's quite clear because that will be my positioning essentially. Plus now I'm working more on the content side for Codeless, which is a bit new again. So, but it's still a lot geared on process development, improvements internally, people management, which is what I wanted to do essentially. So which is good.
What's your thoughts on AI and ChatGPT?
Oh, really? Another good question, Josh. So those are hot topics, and everybody's LinkedIn has been flooded recently, of course. So I think they will be more and more integrated in what we do. And especially I can speak for the content side, because that's what we do mostly now. There will be, in my opinion, an integration of AI plus a content marketer. So a content marketer using AI will outperform let's say a normal content marketer. But the AI and ChatGPT, they're not there yet to take away our jobs. That's, in my view, the good news. But they're getting better. They are supporting specific things that we do, especially with the content workflows and the data research. But you need to take them with a pinch of salt. And so again, the more you provide guidance. I'm using for example, the OpenAI chat for a couple of things, even for tweaking some descriptions on something, and it's great. But you need to be really giving him a good input, or some Excel formulas. Wow, I was working on some dashboard for our internal stuff, and I had to calculate some complex Excel formulas there on some things, values and stuff. And it's great. You can tell him, okay, I need to do this thing for that reason. But you need to be quite good in how you explain to the machine. It will not know what you're thinking, obviously. So it's very good if your input is good. And then it will save a ton of time. Or on a content piece research, if you know already what you want as an output, you can explain it well. It will return you a good result. So I think for now, I see them as a supporting role / partner. And also from clients, they should be aware of, hey, we can do this with the AI. No, we can't. We cannot do everything yet. It's still not up to date. For instance, they don't have latest information on data. It's 2021 or 22, probably 22. So most recent things are not there. Only the Bing, the latest one, which is the one getting upset. I don't know if you saw those. The Bing Chat GPT was a bit with a character, just to say the least. So that one was more up to date. So yeah, I think there will be more. Yeah.
What do you think of this? So me and Darius were on a client call a week or 2 weeks ago, right? And obviously AI is coming a lot into job descriptions. Like you need to, like a lot of things. You have to learn how to use ChatGPT, all of this, right? Which is okay. But we had a client that wants us to find them like a content manager, right? But they're not doing content. His idea is that he wants to hire 25 Filipinos to plug in stuff into ChatGPT, right? And then get somebody to like proof it. So when he was going over it, I was like, well, this isn't like an SEO content manager that we're used to working with. That's literally just like a hiring manager. What's your thoughts on that? Going that route versus using a premium kind of like content agency?
Well, I think that for some type of output, you wouldn't tell the difference. But I would say for the more advanced content, for the more in-depth research content that needs more, legwork behind the scenes, you will see the difference because, again, the chat thing is not there yet. So I would tell to your client, depends what content you're writing, what is your competition. There are some things that they will work, some will work. But some will not, and also depends at what stage of the production of the content you want to put the chat, the AI plus the human. Because, for example, one of the tools, I'll not make names just to be impartial, even you use the tool and it's great, it's one of the popular ones, I'll just throw it in there. They do still require a lot of editing and revisions. Check for plagiarism, for example, fact check things. So they still need a lot of input from a person, essentially. So if they want to hire these people just to feed the monster, so to say, I don't think it's gonna really end well unless maybe they write about, let's say, boring topics and they're very repetitive, for which, the machine went well. I don't know if you saw the bank rate. I don't know if you saw that case. So bank rate is like a financial website thing, and they make no secret of them using AI, and they have a number of topics. So you can literally go site column bankrate.com commas quotation marks. This content was generated with AI in close, and then you'll get all their content written by that. And they're like, financial topics. What is, I don't know, leverage trading? What is insider trading? Whatever it is, and they're covers so a range of stuff. And that was written by AI with some editing, and it ranks. So it works. But is it really useful content? Is it really helpful? Is Google really happy? I user, I human. Would you find it helpful? It's not so exciting content in a way. So.
Cool. Shrey and Darsh, you got any questions for Gabrio? When you got 2 minutes left.
I've got a quick one. So you were speaking about so SEOs, young SEOs expanding their horizons and trying out different niches and just sort of getting an overall across the board experience. Do you think that at this moment in time, as SEOs are learning, as young SEOs, should they start incorporating AI tools from the very start, or should they like sort of as they build up their experience and they start knowing how to use how to manage different like aspects of the industry or different tools, then start adding on AI tools into that?
Yeah, I get the question, and it's not an easy answer, I would say. Well, I'm not at that stage anymore, so I don't know what I would do if I were there right now. But I think I would suggest definitely research and try to get a feel for, again, what you can do, what you cannot do. And it's an interesting question. So such a tricky situation, because on the one, you mean people are starting their career with that right now, right? So I think the expectations of clients will be to know that, or at least be aware of what you can and cannot do. Even if you apply for a client side role, they will have that expectation. So I would suggest to get familiar, and if you're not familiar, get familiar with it. Watch, there's a ton of stuff online in general on this, and maybe experiment a little bit. Take a little blog, try some, get a free account of one of the tools and see what works, what doesn't work. So at least you'll show that you have an understanding on that. But I can see that expectation in that sense from a business perspective.
Cool.
Fantastic. Cool. Well, look, Gabrio, thank you so much for coming on. You're going down to Brighton SEO in April, right?
We didn't decide yet. I have to say,
Oh,
could be
I
or
thought
could
you
not.
were.
Now we didn't decide anything. I wouldn't mind us being a while. I'm not coming over, and then I can maybe pop in London some cool restaurants and Whole Foods, which I miss so much. Who knows? Yeah, I'm into food. I cannot deny it. We love food, so.
Yeah, perfect. Well, look, if you go out, give us a shout because I'd love to meet up with you. But
Absolutely.
Gabrio, thank you so much for coming on, and thank Rocky for coming on as well.
I'll go now, yeah.
But,
All right.
but yeah, Gabrio, it's been great. What we'll do is we'll post this up on YouTube and so forth, and we'll just put in the description all your links. So if anybody wants to get a hold of you, they'll know exactly where to find you.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, guys, and have a good one. Speak soon.
All right, Gabrio.
Cheers, Gabrio.
Thank you.
See you later.